as wisdom.
Annie, we are not seeing those prayers. We're still seeing the Sunday Dharma prayers from the Qigong class.
You're not seeing the Sunday Dharma prayers?
Go ahead, Annie, and let's go ahead and start and then make sure everybody's seeing the prayers as we go.
Are you seeing altruistic motivation?
Yes.
Excellent. Would you like me to start, Kemo?
Please.
All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Excuse me. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. As earth and the other elements, together with space, eternally provide sustenance in many ways for the countless sentient beings, so may I become sustenance in every way for sentient beings, to the limits of space, until all have attained nirvana. As the Sugatas of old gave birth to the bodhicitta and progressively established themselves in the training of a bodhisattva, so I too, for the benefit of beings, shall give birth to that bodhicitta and progressively train myself in that discipline. At this moment, my life has become fruitful. I have realized my human life. Today I am born into the family of the Buddhas. Now I am a child of the Buddhas. From now on, I will forthrightly perform the actions befitting my family. I will act so as not to degrade the faultlessness and discipline of my family. Just as with a blind man finding a jewel in a heap of dust, thus somehow bodhicitta has been born in me. This is the supreme Amrita which destroys death, the inexhaustible treasure which removes the world's poverty. It is the supreme medicine which cures the world's sickness, the tree which provides rest for beings weary of wandering on the paths of existence. It is the universal bridge on which all travelers may pass over the lower realms, the rising moon of mind which dispels the torment of the kleshas. It is the great sun which puts an end to the obscurity of ignorance, the pure butter which comes of churning the milk of the holy Dharma. For travelers wandering the paths of existence, seeking happiness from objects of enjoyment, it is supreme bliss near at hand, the great feast which satisfies sentient beings. Today, witnessed by all the protectors, I have welcomed the sentient beings and Sugatas. Devas and Asuras rejoice. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Avalokiteshvara, while practicing deeply with the insight that brings us to the other shore, suddenly discovered that all of the 5 skandhas are equally empty, and with this realization he overcame all ill-being. Listen, Shariputra, this body itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this body. This body is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than this body. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all phenomena bear the mark of emptiness. Their true nature is the nature of no birth, no death, no being, no non-being, no defilement, no purity, no increasing, no decreasing. That is why in emptiness, body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are not separate self-entities. The 18 realms of phenomena, which are the 6 sense organs, the 6 sense objects, and the 6 consciousnesses, are also not separate self-entities. The 12 links of interdependent arising and their extinction are also not separate self-entities. Ill-being, the causes of ill-being, the end of ill-being, the path, insight, and attainment are also not separate self-entities. Whoever can see this no longer needs anything to attain. Bodhisattvas who practice the insight that brings us to the other shore see no more obstacles in their mind, and because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they can overcome all fear, destroy all wrong perceptions, and realize perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future, by practicing the insight that brings us to the other shore, are all capable of attaining authentic and perfect enlightenment. Therefore, Shariputra, it should be known that the insight that brings us to the other shore is a great mantra, the most illuminating mantra, the highest mantra, a mantra beyond compare, the true wisdom that has the power to put an end to all kinds of suffering. Therefore, let us proclaim a mantra to praise the insight that brings us to the other shore. Gate, gate, para, gate, parasam, gate, bodhi, soha. Gate, gate, para, gate, parasam, gate, bodhi, soha. Gate, gate, para, gate, parasam, gate, bodhi, soha.
Welcome, everyone. We are currently studying Words of My Perfect Teacher and the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, 2 texts that are considered stages of the path texts or Lamrim texts. So they give us step-by-step instruction upon how to move from our confused state into complete liberation. And although there may be special events in between, we'll be studying these texts for the next year or so. And you can always catch up on YouTube with previous lectures. So today we're going to do a very interesting contemplation, and I'll lead you through it. We are starting with what's called the working basis. So We long for liberation from our suffering, but what are the conditions that allow this to happen? And in the previous talks, we went over the condition, first of all, of having a qualified spiritual master. Then last week, we talked about Buddha nature, that we have the potential to become enlightened because we have both the seed of our Buddha nature and the fruition that is obscured. So both the texts mention that really before giving the step-by-step instructions, we have to have at least a sense of what refuge is. We have to have some quality of trust and longing. Otherwise, we're just listening as an intellectual or with a kind of mild interest in something that might make us feel a little better or might make our lives a little easier. And we want to listen with the kind of interest that transforms our life. So the next contemplation that's given in terms of preparing to embark upon the stages of the path is to really recognize how precious this life is that we're currently experiencing, how absolutely rare it is and significant it is. So the refuge in the Buddha is covered by the Buddha nature and the spiritual teacher that we've encountered. And the example that we're invited to look at now is, all right, to have this beginning understanding of refuge, let's think of the Buddha as the doctor and the Dharma as the medicine, and we are the ill patient coming to the doctor, and we actually want to get better and we want to take the medicine. So we do understand that in these lives that we're leading, even in the most wonderful circumstances, we're not free from sickness, old age, and death. We're not free from the suffering of impermanence. You know, essentially, there is no magic cure in samsara that we can find that will make our lives comfortable and happy permanently. We can find moments of happiness, but there's no solution to samsara. And we can see not only are we grasping towards that, but how ridiculous it can be. I saw a headline that Mark Zuckerberg just bought a castle in Ireland. And so you can just see, you know, a healthy younger person trying to find a castle with a wall around it. Gated communities aren't enough. Let's see if you can buy like half a country and protect it. You know, there's no place in samsara that you can go that is going to be free from suffering. So we start to have a really clear understanding that there is suffering. And at the same time, we have encountered enough Dharma that we may have an inkling that Dharma is trustworthy and Dharma is a solve and may hold an aspect of wisdom. We've had that experience. So when we were doing the Lojong teachings, for instance, and we could see how much of the time we make the world outside us the enemy and blame the world for our suffering. But with the mind training, we see, oh, it was my grasping at this security that was causing my suffering. It was this grasping and an illusory permanence in an impermanent world that was causing my suffering. So we may have encountered a moment of Dharma that produced a moment of wisdom and transformed our world and how we live our lives. It transformed our perspective. So we are ready to embark upon studying this book together with a little bit of trust and a little bit of active learning. We're ready to let the Dharma pervade our minds, and in pervading our minds, change our actions in word and deed. And we see with this change, our circumstances start to change. The world becomes a friendlier place, and we are less fearful. So there is that level of trust. So with this, I wouldn't say that this is a complete understanding of refuge, but at least there's a taste of the meaning of refuge. We embark upon this book together, and we're starting to accept that we are ill, the Dharma is the medicine. And the instructions, and I'm going to say the instructions of the lineage, through a spiritual friend, we are connected to a lineage. So the instructions of the lineage are the medicine and the directions that we are trusting in. The next contemplation is our fortunate circumstances. And this is really, really significant and important. We talk about leisure and endowment, or freedoms and endowment, and there's numerical lists. But I'm just going to talk about it today in terms of our own experience and our experience in this world of living a privileged life. So in Buddhism, we say that there are 6 realms, and the human realm is only one of the realms. And the text goes into great detail about these later. But just let's say, let's compare the human realm and the animal realm. I'm looking around, and there are spiders in my house. So the spiders are hearing the Dharma. Maybe the squirrels and birds are hearing the Dharma. But the animal realm, although they're present, although they have Buddha nature, although we experience some of our animals' friends, our dear companions, as having love and compassion, do they really have the capacity to take in the Dharma, contemplate the Dharma, and meditate? So we don't see that that's possible. The human realm is considered the ideal fortunate birth because we can take in, understand, and meditate upon the Dharma. But even within this human realm, think of all the people throughout the world and all the circumstances we could be born into. We could be living in what we might think of as a hell realm. If we were in the middle of Palestine right now, if a bomb is going off down the street, do we have the capacity to meditate? If we were in the Ukraine and being bombed right now, if we were forced into being a soldier by our culture, could we contemplate and meditate? If we were born into starvation and famine, could we contemplate and meditate? Just the circumstance to have a moment free of desperation, free of survival, a moment to have one peaceful, calm breath is rare. Think of, families who have 2 or 3 toddlers. Do they have a second to sit down with a calm breath? Those folks whose incomes are so low that they have to work every second, can they contemplate and meditate? So just having a life where we can be together for an hour and receive the Dharma, if you look at the circumstances of all the world, that is rare. Then let's say, having encountered the Dharma like this, even within our Sangha, all of a sudden you might have a medical need. All of a sudden, you might have a crisis that takes you away. Our dear friend, Barbara Creamer, knows that she's entering the stages of Alzheimer's and had a few days where she had a medical emergency in which she didn't know who she was, much less the opportunity to sit and meditate. Think of all the Dharma you've heard in your life. Has it been precious enough that you've thought about it afterwards and allowed it to change your life? So you might have gone to a lecture by the Dalai Lama and seen an arena of people with the Dalai Lama, one of the greatest spiritual teachers of our time, maybe 10,000 people. How many of those people then maybe have had their hearts touched, but then embarked upon a life-changing entry into the Dharma? So rare, so precious. When I think about what it means when we say a fortunate human life is when we're born into a central country. What is that like to be born into a central country? The central country is where there are spiritual teachers and where there is a fourfold Sangha. A fourfold Sangha is lay men, lay women, fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns. So even the experience of being born into a Tibetan family in Dharamsala near the Dalai Lama, that's not a central country because they don't have fully ordained women. One of the reasons we are still trying to establish full ordination for women. But let's just look at if you were born into a Tibetan family in Dharamsala. Some of you have grandchildren. So as a toddler with your mom and dad, there'd be a shrine in your household, and at 2 years old, you'd be learning how to prostrate. Your parents would be taking you to hear the Dalai Lama and other great teachers, even before you've read your first book. You would have received blessings by great lamas and then have the native language of all of the teachers and an invitation to study anywhere. In Thailand, all young men spent a year in a monastery. So you would have had that same experience as a toddler, having been blessed many times in your life. And then if you were male, a year of commitment to the Dharma. Even going as an adult to Dharamsala or Thailand, when I was in Dharamsala, I was across the courtyard from the Dalai Lama. I saw him several times a week. There were teachings going on night and day. And even though I didn't have the Tibetan language, I could go to the library every single day and take 3 classes. If I needed a particular empowerment or a particular lung, there was a High Lama on every corner. We just had the experience of Garchen Rinpoche recommending a particular practice. If we were in Dharamsala, we could go sit at the feet of any of 10, 20 lamas who would give us the empowerment for that practice, teach us that practice if we requested it. So that is in a country that has Buddhism, a central country with all of the levels of lay and monastic ordination would be like Taiwan. In Taiwan, in Taipei, there are massive monasteries with, each monastery having 5,000 people, 10,000 people, men and women, complete studies available on the street, every third person you see is a fully ordained monk or nun. Every other restaurant has a sign. Wednesdays, monks and nuns are invited to eat. If you're at the airport, somebody says, "Oh, do you need help with your ticket?" There's not only are there fully ordained people, there is the support for fully ordained people. And what is it like for lay practitioners? There's the extraordinary monastery started by a nun, I can't recall the name right now, which is, it runs an operation bigger than the International Red Cross. There are hospitals throughout Taipei and Taiwan where the lay community is offering service every day, where if there's like a fire at a factory, if there's like the fires in the West, if there's the floods in the South, thousands of volunteers as well as lay people putting together all of the food and water, the activity of massive service, not to mention continuous study. So there's a sense of the Dharma changing the culture totally. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to live with that culture, and it's quite extraordinary. And it is also a multi-faith country. So there's support of many different religions. But for us Buddhism, it's an opportunity to participate at any level with easily open doors. So how is that different from our lives here? In my life, in my 20s, I barely encountered a Buddhist text. And when I did, it was without any support, and I read it without enough interest for it to become engaging. It was interesting, let's say, and it had some interesting concepts, but there wasn't the support or the interest on my side for it to change my life. Then and also in Maine where I lived, there were no teachers coming to Maine. There was a monk every few years who came through, but there weren't any sanghas. Then in my 30s, I met His Holiness. And even then, I had to travel to Boston or other states in order to get teachings. And it wasn't till my 40s that I had the combination of the teacher, the karmic connection to the teacher, and the engagement and the interest, so that I traveled to India and lived in India over and over again to fully make Dharma the center of my life. So you can see that the circumstances that we have right now with extraordinary teachers here in our country, sanghas that we can participate in, teachings online so we can engage in beginning, middle, and advanced teachings. The bigger question becomes our own interest and determination. So we're gathering some of the freedoms and endowments. We have leisure, we have accessible teachers and teachings, but have we allowed it to enter our hearts sufficiently that it's pervading and becoming the center of our life? Are we still caught in the ignorance that doesn't recognize how precious not only this life is, but this particular day is. It was a decade ago that I was sitting in a lecture with Khandra Rinpoche, and she just invited us to consider, how old are we now? You know, just think, how old are you today? How many years do you think you might have left? You think you might have 10 years till you die? Of course, we don't know. We could die anytime. But in your imagination, what illusion are you caught up? Like, I would like to think at 76, I would like to think I have 10 years left. A decade ago, I thought maybe I had 20 years left. I am a lot less physically capable than I was 10 years ago. So, you know, okay, we might not have the same physical capability in that imaginary period. And I want you to hold in your imagination 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Let's knock off 3 years of physical capability. Then, all right, you're going to sleep half of those years. So divide it in half again. For me, all right, whoa, that's 3 years of Dharma activity left that I can imagine. I can't count on it, but I can imagine it. And then in these 3 years, am I going to maintain all of my senses? I had to get hearing aids, so I might not catch every single Dharma word. My sight is changing. I just had cataract surgery. It is harder to read actual books. So already it's harder than it was a decade ago. And I didn't imagine that changing. And then, just like Barbara, all of a sudden, her mind was changing and she noticed little small things. In the 3 years of actual Dharma study and practice time, will I have the bright clarity? I'm not sure that I have the extensive bright clarity that I had a decade ago. I still have bright clarity. Can I count on it? So you can see from your own perspective, how many Dharma practice years do you have left? Go right through that exercise. You think you have 20 years active life left? Sleeping half of them? Physical impairments? How many years does that leave you? Really take that in. You've had the precious conditions to receive the Dharma, you know, maybe for 10 years, maybe 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Within that period, how conscious were you of how rare encountering a spiritual teacher and these incredible Dharma texts? How far have you come putting it at the center of your life? Are you ready to listen and practice? The saying goes, like your hair is on fire. I can barely take in that my Dharma life might only be 3 years if I were to live with clarity and physical capacity for a decade. That's pretty shocking, isn't it? And we don't know. We don't know that we have those 3 years. So going back to our beginning prayers, you start to see the second prayer we do is really a key to remind us of the precious human life that we're living right now, actively practicing the Dharma, in which we say, now until I attain enlightenment, until death, I will conduct virtuous deeds. Now until this time tomorrow. If we could truly take in that we might only have this hour, and if we were lucky enough to have this hour, we might only have now until this time tomorrow, would we waste any time? So I'd like to invite a contemplation. And this contemplation of the freedoms and endowments is very important. Carol and I went to see Nuba Rinpoche, who's one of the great Drikung meditators. He's a High Lama, but he spent many, many years in retreat. I have no idea, 10, 15, 16 years in retreat. And it was just before Carol was going into 3-year retreat. And I remember her asking the question, what's the most important thing I can do before going into retreat or to prepare for retreat? And his answer was contemplate precious human life, having the freedoms and endowments. So we're going to give ourselves, let's say, 5 or 6 minutes to contemplate. And I'll ring a bell and just invite a few key topics. So given what we've just heard, let's start with being born a human being, and at this moment, having the health to hear and understand, to be online, to hear and to understand. The first key that Ginny's mind was changing is she couldn't work the computer to log into teachings anymore. So right now we have health and the capacity to hear and understand. And just how rare is that? So many people have health, many people have mental capacity, physical capacity. Think of all the people who are currently reading Pema Chodron books. They're in every airport. I remember when Bill Clinton left the White House, somewhere in the pictures was a visible picture of her book, When Things Fall Apart. So the Dalai Lama has that wonderful book on finding happiness or something like that. Pema has books, passing through airport, you can get a Dharma text. But here you are with leisure and interest enough to say, I'm going to study a Lamrim text that goes step by step. And I'm interested enough not just to pick up a text and throw it back down again or to see, can I solve a particular problem? But I have the interest to take on this study, to allow it to be the steps towards enlightenment, to take the progressive training with perseverance and some degree of conviction and faith in the Dharma, and I can't quite find the right word, the sense that I'm studying it to benefit all beings and myself, but with a particular confidence that it can lead towards enlightenment or towards liberation. And I have enough interest to follow through with what I'm hearing so that I can learn how to practice like my hair is on fire. It's not just general interest. It's not like, I can get teaching every day. I can get teachings every time I turn on the computer. I want to start turning my life around so that I center the Dharma. And really reflecting on that prayer. Now until I attain enlightenment, maybe that's one or two more lifetimes. Maybe it's many lifetimes, but now until death. How can I use well the time I have from now until death? What kind of urgency does that provoke for you? That is still amorphous. Now until this time tomorrow, I will perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. How can we take seriously from now until this time tomorrow? How can we not waste a second? So the invitation, as we begin our study of these texts, the invitation is, well, even to open the book, please prepare. Prepare with an appropriate mindset, the motivation to benefit beings, appreciating coming in contact with a spiritual teacher in a lineage, and appreciating that this precious life we have is like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. It could end at any moment. So don't waste this study. Study with urgency and let it pervade, inform, take to heart, change from now until this time tomorrow. And then the text begins in earnest with the topics that are considered the stages of the path. So I'll do a short dedication and we'll close the live stream, and then comments. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.